Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Glory Hunter Career Mode. Back today with episode 17, and we start by just taking a quick look at the upcoming fixtures for today's episode, where we will be playing away at Salernitana before a simmed game at home to Braga in the Europa League. We then have Ascoli and Juventus in the league, big game against Juventus, before Monza back at home, and then Apoel once again in the Europa League, this time away from home. There are, I believe, 4 played games and 2 simmed games in today's episode, so trying to sort of get some games played in this series, try and progress, as you know, obviously we're not playing in the Champions League this year, so really want to try and crack on with the league campaign. We're not as fussed about the Europa League, as we obviously played it and won it last year, so just want to crack on with the domestic campaign. But you will have seen before the first game of today's episode, we did actually make a very quick signing. It was a free agent goalkeeper, a young Mexican. And there was two goalkeepers that we were looking at, a Spaniard and the man that we brought in. I think his name was Barrera, the Mexican. Probably not going to play a huge amount, but just for realism's sake, I like to have 3 goalkeepers on the books. Sort of like your first team keeper, your backup keeper who plays in the cup competitions, and then normally either a veteran or a young lad who can sort of learn from the 2 ahead of him. So we've obviously got Patricio, we brought in Carnesecchi in the summer, who will get some game time in the Europa League and the Cups this season. And of course, we've now brought in Barrera as that third choice keeper on a free transfer. I think it was pretty cheap wages of around 10 grand a week, but obviously, as I mentioned, the first game of today's episode is on the road away at Salernitana. Interestingly enough, just a couple of weeks ago now, they actually sacked their manager. I think it was after they lost like 8-2 or something to Atalanta, and then a couple of days later made a U-turn, contacted him and said, we want you back, please will you come back? And surprisingly, he actually said yes. If it was me, I probably would have been more inclined to say, no, sorry, you've made your decision, I'm gone. But I guess in the world of football, you kind of need to take every opportunity you get and make sure that you hold on to it. But anyway, I think that they have picked up a little bit since the manager came back in. But in this game, obviously, completely different side, and they had Adam Lallana in their ranks as well, which I found quite funny. Obviously, we've seen the crazy transfer policy from the AI, but it was us who went in to the lead with a Nicolo Zaniolo strike. Great goal. I think that's his first of the season. Yeah, obviously we drew a blank against Sassuolo, and then Zeki Celik scored the goal against Lazio. So Zaniolo's first of the season. Good to see him get on the score sheet. Looking for a little bit more from our front 3 to start this season off. And well, to be honest, we just didn't have our shooting boots on. You can see there were chances for first Tammy Abraham, who had a dinked effort just over the top of the crossbar, landing on the roof of the net. It was quite unlucky, that one, but then Paulo Dybala really should have scored to make it 2-0, but we didn't take our chances in this one. Like I say, we just didn't have our shooting boots on, which has sort of been the case so far this season. We've not really been able to find any rhythm. Obviously, we've come to a new club, which is always difficult, but last season with Atleti, we knew the system, we knew all the players pretty well, and we were quite convincing in most of our games. To start off, we've not been great. Obviously, we know our defence is possibly a little bit weaker than we would like, but we've got a lot of firepower going forward. Obviously, the 2 wide players create a lot of chances from those wide angles, and the 3 that we've got sort of up front, Dybala, Abraham and Zaniolo, should all be able to score goals for us. But again, you can see Dybala going close here. Once again, probably should have found the back of the net, but it does go wide of the post. And it was one of those games where I was thinking, right, are we just not going to find this second goal? Are they going to get back into it? But with about 20 minutes to go, we had a corner. Ball was whipped into Ignacio, who actually went down after a heavy landing. I think it was just a bruise that would keep him out for a few days. But the ball came out to Willy Nonto, who obviously we brought in in that crazy summer transfer window from Leeds United for £3.75 million. His strike was absolutely fantastic, comes off the underside of the bar, and it was his strike partner Tammy Abraham who leaped above the defender to score his first of the season. Good to see Zaniolo and Abraham both grab their first goals of the year, as like I say, those two should be scoring goals this season, so good to see them both get off the mark. And Nonto was absolutely fantastic in this game as well, which is good to see. But we managed to hold on. We kind of controlled the game from there. It was quite a convincing second half performance, although like I say, I was worried that we wouldn't get that second goal. It did eventually come, and we managed to hold on for the 2-0 victory. So our first league win of the season, absolutely fantastic to see. Needed to make sure we got that, because if we'd gone another game where we'd not picked up the win and we were winless with it in our first three, then we would have had a lot of ground to make up already. So it's not been too bad a start to the season. Obviously drew with Lazio at home, and then we just picked up that first win against Salernitana. And after that, we had a Europa League game, our group opener at home to Braga. Probably the team you'd say are most likely to challenge us for top spot in the group this year. Although, as I've mentioned, we won't be focusing on the Europa League as much as the league this year. But we did field a rotated side, still feeling pretty confident that we could get a result. We were a goal down, Fabio Moretti making his first start. He would make back-to-back appearances, starting this one in the league as well, but as a corner was played into the middle for Braga, he was the unfortunate man on the post, who the header deflected off and ended up in the back of the net to put the away side 1-0 up. And then following that, we managed to get back into the game to make it 2-1. I think it was Belotti or Tadic who got the goal and got us back on level terms, but it was a terrible time to concede for us. Literally a minute or two before the break, we would find ourselves 2-1 down. Banza, a French striker, scored the second goal to put the away side 2-1 up. And we couldn't really get back into the game. The away side probably deserved the victory, and they did score a third in the second half to secure it. So not a great start to the Europa League. Obviously, I've mentioned that we won't be taking that as a priority over the league this season, but I of course still want to get out of the group and progress, as it is a potential chance to get into the Champions League for next year. And of course we want to win as many trophies as we can, and even though we've already won it, if we can do so again, then that'll be absolutely fantastic. Obviously it's going to be difficult because there are some good sides that come down from the Champions League every year, a couple of good sides already in the competition, but at the latter stages there's no reason why we cannot take it a little bit more seriously, especially if we feel like we've got a chance of getting quite far in the competition. But I still feel confident that we'll be able to get out of the group pretty easily. Clermont-Foot and Apoel, the other two teams, even if we finish second in the group, I don't really want to have to play the preliminary round, but I'd probably just sim it anyway, or at least one of the legs. But yeah, we'll see what happens when we come to the end of the group stage. But following that, we were back to matters in the league and back on home soil at the Stadio Olimpico as well. And you will have seen, well, you can see him there, a familiar face in the Ascoli lineup, Mile Svilar, who we sold in the summer for a couple of million to Ascoli. This is obviously their first year in Serie A in this save, obviously in Serie B in real life. And they came up looking for a new shot stopper. They bought Svilar from us, knowing that he was on the transfer list. But to be honest, he didn't really make much of a name for himself in this one. Not a very good display from our former keeper. The first goal was scored by Fabio Moretti. Good to see him get on the score sheet. Obviously, we mentioned that he scored the own goal against Braga, so probably needed that little bit of confidence. Scored his first goal for the club since his summer move from Juventus. It was a good strike, but the keeper definitely should have saved it. It was sort of in the middle of the goal and he didn't cover himself in much glory. The second goal was scored by Dusan Tadic from a corner, and you can see here that the third was also scored from a corner. Fontana Also, alongside Moretti scoring his first goal for the club in this one. Great celebration as well. Really like this guy coming in. I haven't checked for definite with the date of birth, but I'm fairly sure that he's Leonardo Bonucci's regen. So it's kind of cool that we've got him on the books and in the side, and really enjoying using him so far, although he did get absolutely skinned by Cicciaretti for the Ascoli goal that they scored here. Just going to be a consolation for them, but the power strike from, I think it was Mendes, absolutely brilliant strike, got them a goal back, but we were fairly comfortable in this one. We were 3-0 up, obviously. 2 goals from corners, bit of a worry for Ascoli, but good signs for us, and we did manage to secure the victory by 3-1. So back-to-back wins in the league. This is exactly what we needed after a little bit of a slow start. Only 1 point from our first 2, now back-to-back victories. But it would get tougher for us as we would travel to Turin to take on Juventus at the Allianz Stadium. Obviously, they now have the rights back for Juventus in FIFA career mode this year, well, in FIFA in general. And I've seen quite a few people actually manage Juventus on FIFA 23. The 2 main career mode YouTubers that I watch, Docs and Chesnoid, have both actually managed Juventus in this year's game. So we were against them in this one, obviously being in charge of Roma. Unfortunately, one of the sides that they did actually lose the rights to this year. There's so many that they did lose the rights to, which is it's a shame, because in career mode it kind of not breaks the immersion, but it's nice to have the proper licensing and everything. But going to be a tough game, this one in Turin, and it was the home side who started on top. We've obviously, despite our back-to-back victories, not had the greatest of starts, but Rui Patricio to start off this game was on absolute fire, keeping out everything that Juventus threw at him. Made a save from a header from a corner, and also a fantastic stop from, I believe it was Zakaria who hit the shot. It was going in at the near post, and it was a fantastic save by Rui Patricio, and then from the resulting corner it was Zakaria with the shot again, which was well held by our Portuguese shot stopper. But speaking of CDMs, getting forward and having attempts on goal, Brian Cristante for us kind of nailed down that starting position next to Lorenzo Pellegrini, the captain, to start off this season. He goes forward, hits a shot, but it's well saved by Unai Simon in the Juventus goal. So that did mean that we went in at the break at 0-0. We were probably the happier of the sides, as Juventus had been on top. But just 10 minutes into the second half after the restart, it was a corner for Roma. The ball was whipped in, out swinger, and Chris Smalling, who'd been brought in for this game, Ibanez had a slight knock, so Chris Smalling started, or sorry, it may have been Inacio who he came in for, but either way, he was included in the back 3 for this game, and it was a fantastic header from him. Like I say, outswinging corner that came in, and he rose like an absolute salmon, headed the ball past Unai Simon in the Juventus goal. But we knew that they weren't going to give up on this game without a fight, only being a goal down. You can see around the hour mark they were absolutely peppering our goal. And if it wasn't for Rui Patricio and, well, the clearance off the line there, we would have been in real trouble. And we managed to sort of ride the wave until the 88th minute here. Angel Di Maria off the bench, offloads to Pogba. And the left back, Kostas Tsimikas, who doesn't even know how to celebrate. Look at him, he's just stuck in the goal. But with 30 seconds left to play, fires the ball in for the home side. And this was absolutely heartbreaking. Just got dragged out of position with a couple of my defenders, and as Rui Patricio sort of dives at his feet, somehow he manages to hit the ball over the dive of Patricio into the back of the net, and you can see how frustrating that was come the final whistle for us. So close to picking up a massive win, and what would have been 3 wins in a row for this Roma side. Obviously not a bad result travelling to Turin, but you'll see the stats in just a moment. They probably just about edged it, but we definitely deserved a point out of the game. Obviously, one of those that, if we'd gone on to win it, no one would have said it was undeserved. We'd created a few chances, scored the goal from the corner, and it was frustrating that we conceded late on. It was just our players getting dragged around, players moved out of position, worked the ball inside and had a man over, and it was Tsimikas who scored the equaliser. But following that, we got back to the office and we had firstly some good news. We managed to shift on a few of the defenders who we had on the transfer list and the loan list. It was Ronnie Edwards who went out on loan first for a 2-year loan. He's someone who, with the loan system in this year's game, could grow quite well out on loan and come back a little bit of a beast. He's someone who I possibly would have used if we've not had so many centre-backs this year. Possibly could have got some game time in the Europa League, but yeah, we managed to loan him out. I think he went to Porto off the top of my head. I think it was Porto, so good to see him out in Portugal getting some game time. But we did have some bad news as well. You will have seen that we had 2 players go down, and Chris Smalling, the man who scored the goal at the Allianz Stadium in Turin, and our captain Lorenzo Pellegrini, both down for 3 months. They joined Destiny on the treatment table, and we've been really unlucky with injuries to start off this season. I have mentioned before that I've upped the injury sliders. After that game, I did turn them down slightly just because I want to get realistic results. It seemed like we were getting an injury or 2 every game, so I did turn them down slightly just to sort of see how we get on. I want to get realistic injuries, but I didn't change them from the season with Atletico Madrid to this first couple of games with Roma, and we seem to have had a lot more injuries than we did with our Atletico Madrid side. So it's frustrating, but it does happen. Look at Chelsea in real life and how long their injury list is. It does happen, so you can't say that it's unrealistic, and it's making this even more of a challenge than it already was. We're going to be without our experienced defender Chris Smalling and of course our captain Lorenzo Pellegrini. That one the biggest miss of them all, but luckily, as I said, we have recruited really well in the summer, brought in a lot of players to add depth. So you think the players that can come into that midfield, we've got Ravella, who gets featured in this game later on, Nicolo Ravella, Moretti, who's obviously already started a few games for us this season, obviously scored his first goal in that home game against Ascoli, and we've got a few more experienced players like Nemanja Matic. We've got VR, Tommaso Pobega, another player who came in the summer. So we've definitely got enough options, but obviously, we'd never choose to be without our captain if we could make that decision. Chris Smalling, another one who's gone down. We've got players to come in. Fontana's obviously joined and scored his first goal as well earlier on in the episode, and I'm really enjoying actually using him. So as I say, we've got more than enough cover. Players like Montes and Kumbula as well. Not quite at the level, but, it's not like we're having an absolute injury crisis. But anyway, into the final game of today's episode. We were away in Cyprus against Apoel, and they actually shocked us. We'd rotated quite a bit for this for this game. Rotated the side quite a lot, as I've mentioned. Not really our priority so far, the Europa League, and we were a goal down. Not really the start that we were after. Apoel going a goal up, really well worked goal, but we'd put in about 4 or 5 tackles and been unsuccessful in winning the ball back, which was really, really frustrating. They worked the ball inside and beat Karnasecchia's near post, who was in for this game. We did manage to equalise through Dusan Tadic, who's been fantastic to start this season off. Really actually enjoying using him. And that's one thing I like about these sort of career modes where you move around, as we see an absolute howler there from Karnasecchi. But that's one thing I like, is you use players who you maybe wouldn't use all the time. Dusan Tadic is someone I would probably never look to sign in a career mode, or very rarely. And yeah, he's been fantastic to start off this season, so really enjoying using him. And it's great to see these sort of players that you don't expect to do well end up being really good for you. So Tadic to start this season off has been one of our best players. Obviously wouldn't expect it with Tammy Abraham and Dybala, Zaniolo as our sort of main front three, but Tadic is making a name for himself and staking a claim to be in the starting 11. But this game was an absolute roller coaster, guys. We were 2-1 down, obviously, as I sort of briefly mentioned, an absolute howler from our backup keeper, Carnesecchi. I have mentioned that Rui Patricio is retiring come the end of the season, and we will need a long-term successor. Well, if Carnesecchi is going to be throwing them into the net like that, then it definitely won't be him, and he will remain our backup. So just before the break, obviously conceded the second. We were 2-1 down, not what we wanted at all. And we had a bit of work to do. Obviously, we lost our group opener, and we didn't want to lose the second game in the group, which would have put us in a really precarious position because Apoel actually won their first game as well. But in the second half, we turned it on, turned the style on, and there was a couple of substitutions that really helped. Nicolo Ravella came into the midfield for Nemanja Matic. That double pivot of Matic and Moretti just wasn't working. We needed more legs, so Ravella came on at half time, and Nonto also got the nod with around half an hour to play. And it was Volpato who got us back on level terms. Another fantastic assist from Dusan Tadic, who was running the show, as I say, in this game. Before Nonto scored 2. One fantastic goal, an overhead kick. Unfortunately, I skipped the celebrations and the replay, annoyingly, and we missed it. And late on, he did score his hat-trick to make it Apoel 2, Roma 6. And we were obviously 2-1 down in this game, so you know, really good to see the turnaround. Not so great that we're conceding goals against sort of lower ranked opposition, but great to see that we're scoring goals on the offensive. And Nonto off the bench scored a 30-minute hat-trick, the second one being an absolute worldie, the overhead kick from the corner, but got brought off the bench, and him and Ravella really did change the game. So great to see that we've got options that can make a difference, and Nonto's been fantastic to start the season off as well, so really happy with the signing of the Italian, the man who's obviously at Leeds in real life. To end off the episode, we will take a quick look at the league table, where you can see we're currently 5 points off leaders Juventus, although we have played a game left, but it's extremely tight, just 6 points separating the top 8 so far in the league. Lots of places up for grabs. Our next game is Inter Milan, who are just above us in 5th place, but after a slow start to the season, we made some good progress today, and we're looking forward to cracking on with the rest of the domestic campaign. But that will do it for today's video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and peace.